indicate, to summarize, and then you begin a summary of what was decided at the last town council meeting, and you say, the first one, quote, "It is the sense of the council that the spirit of the act requires a supermajority of the council to approve an excess levy." That was the impression you got at the last council. Then your proposal is that first the town council approves the levy by 4/5 vote.
No.
No, I'm sorry. That after the after the financial town meeting, if the financial town meeting approves a levy that exceeds the cap, then the town council approves the levy by a 4/5 vote.
Because that's when your levy exists. It doesn't exist before the
There's
meeting.
two you suggest the two problems are obvious, I would think. One, the statute couldn't possibly be interpreted to say that. And number two, suppose the town council, which you say should now approve it after the financial town meeting by a 4/5 vote, says no. Then what happens?
That's exactly, it points out the real kernel,
Okay,
doesn't
I
it?
mean, because my question after reading
We don't have the authority.
You don't have the authority.
We have the authority to request from the state to give the authority.
Absolutely.
Right, that's our authority.
But that's why,
But our
that's what
authority
I
is
liked
not
about
to
this.
approve a levy exceeding the cap. That is up to the financial town meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that what Councilor Lambert just raised is actually true, that in the 4/5 scenario, if you take the 4/5 vote after the FTM, and if two councilors choose not to approve the levy, then we're left in a quandary. We got an FTM that said, you know, we're gonna spend this much, and then two councilors say, no, we're not, after the fact. It's a whole lot easier to take the 4/5 vote before the FTM, so that everybody knows the ground rules of the approved excess levy. The second point I want to make is that what I'm hearing and what I've heard, I mean, it depends on how this goes, but essentially, if the FTM can do what it wants, wholly can do what it wants, then there is no tax cap in Tiverton, Rhode Island, period. Because in the end, even if we got 3% budget, there is no waiver, there's no nothing, we go to the FTM and 15% gets voted in, that's what's going, and there is no tax cap in Tiverton. So I just want to make the point, that that interpretation, which is being tossed around here, essentially saying there is no tax cap in Tiverton. If the FTM, there is no, what I heard was, in a lot of this discussion, was that the FTM has the final say. And that says to me, there is no tax cap in Tiverton.
See, Jeff, I'm not so sure that I agree with that position. There is no, I'm asking, and I haven't got an answer yet, what happens when the financial town meeting would approve a budget in excess of the cap?
The solicitor answered that last week, Don.
I still think the state's position on that's going to be your levy can only be the 4.5%. That's the levy. By state law, that's the levy. Now the court may turn around and say, you have to find another way to generate what was passed at the financial town meeting. That's a problem. That's a major problem. Because there is a cap. And if there isn't a request for an exceedance based on those provisions in the general law, you can't exceed the levy. You can appropriate any amount of money you choose to appropriate. You can only generate so much of it through the taxation. That's the levy. And we would be bound, even if the financial town meeting approved a budget in excess of the cap, we would be bound by levy to only raise X number of dollars. That was the question prior to a tax cap, that a levy was passed.
Okay, but
And when the levy language was passed, it was different than the number that was calculated, and it created a shortfall. And that's where I come up with that scenario where we were told, go ahead, raise it any way you want, but you can't raise it through the levy because that was already passed.
Don, I hope you're right on that. I really do. And in that case, a lot of taxpayers can take a deep breath because it won't be levied on them and we'll have to find it through the bake sale. However, if that situation unfolds, Don, if that situation unfolds, your own solicitor has already stated on the record that he will not argue that position you just said. He will argue that it's okay to set the levy over the cap. He said it 2 weeks ago. So I come back to my statement that if this vote goes a certain direction, there is no tax cap in Tiverton.
But there is, again, let me say this, when we go forward with our request of the Department of Revenue, we have to justify the amount, and they will give us a limit. So that would then become the cap.
No, but look at it this year, Councilor Costa. This year, this year, if we're under the cap, there will be no request for a waiver. Okay?
Why do you make that statement, Jeff?
Because if you read, well, I'm reading the policy number 1 and 2, okay? There would be no need to go request a waiver.
No, it says the consultation with the treasurer, the budget committee chairman, and the administrator, and then a request would be made to the council. So technically, if the administrator, I see this scenario, if the administrator and the treasurer disagree with the budget committee chairman and go to the council and say, we're short this revenue. We are definitely short 1.4 million. We should be looking to get a waiver from the state just in case. That the council may take that vote to say, okay, let's ask for it. Let's see what it comes back at. And all it's just going to give those, that would change your scenario at the financial town meeting.
But let's go forward a year. Let's go forward a year from now. 2.5% tax increase projected. Okay? Nobody's even thinking about a waiver. 2.5% tax increase.
No. You don't think about the waiver because of what you're looking for in a budget. The waiver comes about if you run into a situation where we have debt service increase that you can't account for, you have the shortfall in revenue, which happens to be motor vehicle tax in this particular case, or those other scenarios that are clearly laid out in the legislation of what you're allowed to ask for. If you don't have any of those situations, you cannot ask for a waiver of the cap. So you're stuck with the next year at 4.25.
Okay.
So that's the way it is. You first of all have to have a situation which puts you into one of the 4 categories. If it's not there, you can't request it, or if you request it, it will be denied because you can't demonstrate. And that's the way I'm reading this whole situation. When something happens that's outside of the ordinary, you can go to them and ask them for a waiver on the cap. Other than that, you're stuck with the cap. And I believe then the financial town meeting is the same thing. Whether the solicitor says they got the right to do it, you would have to then, if they did do it, you would probably have to go get special permission to implement, that budget. You would have to get an exemption from the General Assembly, I would assume, because, because.
I think perhaps when that case was brought, we went to the wrong forum.
Well,
I think up to the point of, I think the financial town meeting, we keep saying that people can go crazy in this town. I've never seen a financial town meeting where people go, you think people want to pay more tax than what is needed in this town? I don't think so. I don't want to set up straw men and then try to take them down. I mean, the confidence that I have in the financial town meeting is the confidence that I have in my people that surround this table or out listening to us.
Well,
Let's not run them down.
I would urge that Councilor Lambert read his proposal. I would urge the council to adopt that and to keep the tax cap in play, because I've thought about this a lot of hours too for 2 years, and it's my opinion that based upon what the solicitor said in the reading, that there will be no tax cap in Tiverton if this is passed in a form that does not give reverence to the points that Councilor Lambert's proposal raised. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I am not at all certain that we will ever agree, even if we have the, and I almost think that what we should do is proceed into court. The Calder case has been brought against the town, and I think we should proceed to bring that to conclusion.